There's something about making dough that's both rewarding and fun. It's hands-on, it's interactive. You can do it with your kid, you can do it with your significant other, your SO. One of the easiest pasta doughs to make, in my opinion, is gnocchi dough. Is gnocchi a pasta? Babe, is gnocchi a pasta? Or is it a dumpling? Dumpling. One of the most forgiving dumpling doughs to make is gnocchi dough. So today we're gonna be making lobster gnocchi, and I promise you, you can't screw this up. Let's do it. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dishes and Fishes, where I show you how to cook and set hooks. Make sure you check out my TikTok for a lot of good 1-minute recipes and my Instagram for weekly and monthly updates. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy easy, delicious home cooking or fishing, hit that subscribe button. So let's make this lobster gnocchi. So this dish only has 9 ingredients. It's got 4 for the sauce, the lobsters, and 4 for the gnocchis. So you're gonna need 2 to 3 large potatoes or 5 to 6 small ones. I have small ones here. These are Yukon Gold. I'm gonna bake those at 400 degrees till they're soft. While they're in the oven, I'm gonna prep my sauce. I'm gonna start with this shrimp and lobster stock that I made. You can use lobster base or whatever you want from the store. It'll still be the same. We're also gonna need some half and half or heavy cream, some sherry cooking wine, and some tomato paste. I'm gonna start by just lightly toasting off a tablespoon of tomato paste in the pan. Just don't burn it. And then I'm gonna add my shrimp stock. And I want all those little red shrimpy bits at the bottom. It doesn't matter for this recipe. I'm gonna add a whole bottle of sherry wine. This stuff is awesome for seafood dishes. I'm planning on having leftover sauce to make another dish after this. I'm gonna throw in about half a cup of half and half, some more tomato paste because it needed it, and a splash of heavy cream just so I can get some extra creaminess. Let that lightly simmer for a few minutes, then finish it with black pepper and set it aside. You can do this the day before if you want to. Now we got our lobsters. I had the store steam them for me. That's way easier and cleaner in my opinion. Just tell them to steam them for 12 minutes because they usually try to do it for 20. Assure them that it'll be okay and take them home and put them in a nice bath. I'm gonna separate out the claws, the tails. I don't like that green whatever nastiness. I'm not that hardcore. You guys are savages for eating that. I'm gonna wash that out. And I'm gonna actually break off all the walking legs too. Don't skip this and I will show you why. I'm gonna take the legs, snap them in half, pull the meat out. It should come out in one little pull like that. And I'm gonna take my rolling pin and just roll all the meat out of these walking legs. So again, just snap it in half and the meat should pull out. If it doesn't, just roll it out, take your time, get all the meat out of these sections. But for a pasta dish, this little bit of lobster currency is very, very valuable. We'll give you 2 to 3 extra lobstery bites. And if you're curious, that weighed just less than an ounce. Now I'm going to take the meat out of the lobster tails. You don't need any tools to do this. Just flip them over so the smooth side is into your palms and crack them. And then just peel them with your thumbs. Be careful, the edges can be a little bit sharp. But this is how I do lobster tails. You can really get through a bunch very quickly. So peel the meat out of both those lobster tails and then set that aside with your leg meat. You can crack the claws pretty easily when you have soft shell lobsters in the summer, but these claws are hard, so I gotta use my rolling pin to crack them underneath this kitchen towel. You could also use the back of your knife if you want. Just pop them a few times, crack the shell, and the claw should pull out in one fell swoop. You want to make sure that you don't forget to get this little tendon out of the meat of the claw. It's okay if we break the claw up a little bit. It's going to go in the pasta. Then this is optional, but I'm going to split my lobster tail in half and just pick out the lobster roe inside the tail, these little red bits. Again, some people eat it. I'm going to put it in the scraps with my shells, put that in my freezer, and make stock for, guess what? More lobster gnocchi in the future. So this is kind of like a never-ending recipe, if you will. You can just make stock and keep using it. So now that my potatoes are softened up, I'm going to slice them in half and make sure they're cool before you do this. I was a little bit impatient in this video, and I'm going to just scrape all of the potato flesh out of the skins, so I'm left with just the nice fluffy bits. Roasting the potatoes instead of boiling them is also way neater, so that's why I like to do it. I'm going to give that a rough chop with my bench scraper at first. Having a ricer is great for this, but I don't have one, so I'm just going to use a fork and just go through and squish all the lumps down. It does the same thing as a ricer, but it just takes a little bit more time and effort. Then I'm just going to toss it with my bench scraper and rice it until it's all nice and smooth and I don't have any lumps in it, and I'm going to make a well. Then in my well, I'm going to crack 2 eggs and a generous amount of Parmesan cheese, probably half to 1 cup. And whisk that together till it starts to become incorporated a little bit. For this recipe, like I said, I usually use 2 to 3 large potatoes or 5 to 6 small ones, and I always start with 1 cup of flour, and I add about half of it and mix it, then the other half, and then I will start to incorporate it with my bench scraper like this. This 1 cup of flour won't be enough, but I like to add it first, and then I like to just add flour by the tablespoon after I'm done kneading. So I'll knead it for a little bit, put some flour in, knead it, sprinkle another tablespoon of flour in if I need it. Make sure I get all the potato bits off of my work surface. And just keep adding flour and kneading until it makes a nice soft dough pillow that you would put a child to sleep on. Now I'm going to flour up my work surface as well as my bench scraper, and I'm going to take my dough and I'm going to cut it into strips. And it really doesn't matter the size of these strips, so there's no need to weigh them out. Once you have your strips, you're just going to roll them out into strips that are the same diameter as a gnocchi. And you're just going to repeat this through all your strips. It's no problem if they're not the same length. We're going to cut them all here in this step. So I'm going to line them all up, and I'm going to go through with my bench scraper and just cut my gnocchis. Try to make them the same size so they cook a little bit more evenly, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. Just take your time, flour your tools and your gnocchis, and just cut them all up. Now it's time to make these into gnocchis. So you can do this with a fork or a gnocchi board. I think the gnocchi board is worth $10 on Amazon because it just puts more grooves into the gnocchis. So you can see the fork does like 3 deep grooves, and the gnocchi board does many grooves. So it just becomes a way better vessel to transport that awesome sauce into my mouth. So I prefer the gnocchi board. If you make a lot of gnocchis like me, definitely something to have. So you can see this isn't too difficult. Just take the gnocchi and you're going to kind of roll it 180 degrees, I think. It feels like that over the gnocchi board. Just practice a few, you will get it after the 3rd or 4th gnocchi. There's something about these nice fluffy gnocchis that just gets me fired up. And like I said, for 4 ingredients, that dough is super easy. So now I'm going to get some olive oil and salt and some boiling water with my gnocchis. Once they're all in, I'm going to just stir them so I can make sure that nothing's sticking to the bottom of my pot. This little induction burner is terrible at boiling water, so it did cool my water a little bit. But once all your homies start swimming up to the surface, they're done. Once they're floating, they're cooked, so you can just take them out. I'm doing this a few hours ahead of time, so I'm going to shock them in an ice bath. And make sure you save 1 or 2 cups of the water that you cook the gnocchis in. You can do all of these steps the day before, and then the day of, you'll have all the stuff just ready to saute. And now we're all set. We've got our sauce, our gnocchis, our lobster meat, our lobster tails, and our pasta water. This next part is optional, but I'm just going to lightly score my lobster tails to discourage them from curling in the pan. They are going to curl inevitably, but this helps, and you don't have to sear your lobster tails if you don't want to. I just wanted them to be crispy for this dish. You could also just poach them to reheat them, but I'm going to sear them off so they're crispy and baste them in butter and set them aside. Then I'm going to drop my cooked gnocchis into this brown lobster butter. And now you pretty much just want to keep tossing the gnocchis periodically so they don't burn. I'm going to throw in some butter because obviously that's awesome with gnocchi. And I'm also going to use some Montreal steak seasoning. Typically I wouldn't use this in a frying pan recipe like this because the garlic will burn, but the burnt garlic bits are actually good in this recipe. Now I'm going to add 1 to 2 cups of my lobster sauce, and I'm going to let this start to bubble and let the starches from the gnocchis naturally thicken up that sauce. I'm going to grate some fresh Parmesan in and toss it. I'm going to add some more Parmesan and some pasta water and give it another toss. Pretty much keep repeating this process until you're happy with the flavor and consistency, then add your lobster meat. I don't like dicing my lobster meat up. I kind of like stumbling across those huge chunks of lobster. It's like a nice surprise, and you can tell it's freshly picked from the shells then. And it's time to plate up, guys. So I'm going to put my lobster gnocchi in a bowl, followed by my seared lobster tail. Finish it with some chives and some freshly grated Parmesan cheese, and I would also add some lemon, but I forgot it. And that's it, guys. A really fun recipe to make with somebody else. It's only 9 ingredients. When lobster's on sale in the summer, you know your boy's making this dish quite a bit. So try it yourself, tag me if you do, and as always, thanks for watching.